And I don't want to deal with that over the household.
Well, there's so many problems if you can shoot somebody. You're the accused.
Well, you are, but the problem is people get into with that is they don't know how to manage it. And that's the problem, you know. Now, granted, if you work in an area where there's a lot of backup, yeah, you should be doing, should be way, they should be drawing a lot later than what I would be drawing mine, knowing that my backup's half an hour away.
I don't know. Literally, I mean, that's probably the fastest
Girl
girl
window, last 30 seconds. Hey, there's a new so half an hour away and flight last 30 seconds. You know, that's, you gotta learn how to work.
Do you maybe have Bruce set new videos but not new
steps that you did?
Because I could see it maybe had a little slack on the video
It took
thing.
3 days to get cleared.
Because like I have that set up. YouTube sometimes will send me, hey, here's a video we think you would like, and it was posted a week ago. But mine actually comes up with this and says, hey, it's streaming.
Word it right, and they drop and kill the hand all over domestic situations. So.
Wow.
But, yeah, we're tired. I have my contacts in, so I didn't get off till 5:30 this morning. Got back up at 7.
I know, but you had trouble after you got out.
Oh, that part of it?
That's
It's kind of subsiding now. I spent some time and had some medical drops and stuff like that. I do check to watch about 3 or 4 times a week.
I want to get a new projector.
That's what you're saying.
They're so
only
cheap
problem I really have now is
I mean, we can get one
every now and then if I get an intense
5 times better than that, but probably cheaper than we got that one for.
So
The main reason is when we actually do watch movies,
during
it's
summer, not usually during the week. So I don't come out till 7. So
it might actually become a nice resource too. To have one of those sitting
about 3:30, but even
down the road
on
somewhere, or
actually,
and
it
it's
starts
not
coming
like
out, but it
a
doesn't bright until.
That was all that you.
So
Like the original shirt,
I'm not
the
out.
version where they were doing 300 pounds.
I actually was researching last night the projector add-on for our phones.
Yeah.
I've thought about taking that with me to Belarus. That thing it's only got 50 lumens, so I don't know how well it would do in a lit room. But I watched a YouTube tutorial, and man, this guy had 70 inches in his basement with the lights off. I mean, it looked as good as $1,000 projector. I mean, it was in a little dumb little thing you attached to your phone. But my big thing was I don't think you could hook up a remote control for like a PowerPoint. I think you'd have to set it up and the screen is facing you and you just come over and have to like swipe. But it'd be not, because Yulia is wanting me to do like a budgeting class over there. Well, it'd be nice to, wherever we set up. Things are laid out so weird. I don't know. It's like they don't have building codes or something. I mean, you get into buildings and they're like mazes. I mean, there's no like central hallway with. There's none of that. You're walking through rooms to get to rooms to get to So you just never know what you
building codes. It was whatever the local drunken cooking
Yeah.
got bribed into allowing to have happen.
Well, a lot of those buildings was just it was kind of everything got busted by the Germans, so just start building like crazy. You know, I mean, all those buildings are the exact same age because they were all destroyed in World War II. It's been wild going over there. Just I learned growing up that the Soviets took the biggest hit, in World War II. Well, the portion of the Soviets that took the hit was Belarus. I mean, they're the ones that took the hit. That was the war ground. I mean, they completely decimated Belarus moving towards Moscow. So.
So they don't tear anything down and build
it. There's a lot of new construction there, but it's all apartment buildings. And I guess apartment buildings they're pretty simplistic.
You don't get lost.
I guess I'm talking about the buildings that were actually designed as office kind of building. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like the building, Yulia works for a school that teaches English, a private school. And like I went with her to class one day, and I mean, I felt like I'm trying to even think of an example. I mean, I felt like, well, you guys haven't been to the Hope Center. I guess I'd imagine a large office building where you're walking through one
Or like a
office.
hospital where I get always lost in a hospital.
Kind of, but even they have hallways. I mean, that we literally like walked up some steps, walked through a door into a room, and then walked through another door into a room, and turned right through a door, and that was their break room. And then I mean, it's like, so you guys, what do you actually rent here? Like, I mean, it's like buildings just built with rooms is all it is. There's not a lot of rhyme or reasons. I mean, the apartment buildings are different. They're just the central staircase and the apartments. That's Lena Atushka. I don't see her too often because she's one of Steve's contacts. Mike, I mean, we'll sometimes see her briefly, but she spends a lot of time with Steve. And she spends a lot of time with Bill. Bill has been taking these high school kids over, and they do pretty much like a kids camp and try to get as many kids involved just as kind of a proactive toward type of effort. Well, her effort is very reactive. Lena is involved with women who have been trafficked. Whereas Olga, the difference there is I like Olga's approach because Olga is trying to nip it in the bud. You know, I mean, she's
Preventative maintenance.
yeah,
right now.
exactly. Whereas Lena is actually dealing with people who have experienced it.
Wow.
But Lena's been over here multiple times. Like Steve's brought her over to do classes to get certification and stuff that helps tremendously over there. So that issue is just, man, it's unreal. I mean, it's starting to be.
But it's everywhere.
Oh yeah, well, and it's starting to get a lot of attention. I mean, I saw the other day where Ashton Kutcher was like, I mean, the actor was actually like presenting something to Congress that he started a foundation about human trafficking, and I mean, he was passionate. I mean, it's getting a lot of attention because it's such a problem. I mean, I can't remember who, it might have been Steve that told me this, but I mean, it's literally to the point where you have the drug industry starting to move over into human trafficking because it's more lucrative. I mean, it's stupid. So, that's great. I mean, that is, to me, it just seems like it seems like an extra level of evil.
Yeah,
I mean, really. I mean, peddling a substance that can hurt people is one thing, but I mean, kidnapping or preying on human beings, especially young, attractive girls that are orphans. I mean, and turning them into slaves.
Yeah, you know that they have issues anyway, and then
Right. Well, that's part. It's a psychological slavery. I mean, that's what it is. All right, guys. We're gonna go ahead and get started here. We did 4 full-blown. I'm trying to decide. My thought has been if this was ever completed, I would have maybe about 12 modules that I could do a 2-hour class an evening, for a few months, maybe for the community or something as an outreach. But I think some of the modules we've done would be more than 2 hours because I know we spent a few weeks on it. But I wanted to do probably one module on insurance. And it is yet again, is there anyone here who does not have a form of insurance? Right, okay. Is there anyone here that would say that they are an authority and fully understands how all their insurance works? Okay. Yet again, it's something else that we all deal with. Everyone that we deal with deals with it. And there's not a lot of complexity to it, but no one's taught it unless you go take the week-long insurance class, that gets you licensed. Which yet again, God has seen fit to give me weird experience on. Just to give you, whenever I was about 17 or 18 years old, I knew I wanted to wear nice clothes and go sit at a desk and have a briefcase. And I remember thinking I could go banking or I could go insurance. And I went insurance and later regretted it when I got into banking. But so I started out in insurance, and to be an agent in insurance, insurance is largely broken into two major categories. One is called property and casualty, which is also called P&C. Property and casualty is any type of property and liability coverage, okay? Coverage for your car, for your house, for your stuff. Liability in case you wreck your car. Liability in case your dog bites the neighbor. All that kind of stuff is property and casualty. That is usually the kind that you are required by some entity to have. You're either required by the government or you're required by your bank to have property and casualty. The other one is life and health, okay? And it deals with life insurance, health insurance, all the various types of products that are within the life insurance shell, long-term care insurance, nursing home insurance, disability, all that kind of stuff. So there are two licenses that you have to have. Most insurance agents start out with property and casualty because that's what everyone has to have, and others go on to life and health. I've had both licenses. I've dealt in various arrays of things. I've had all kinds of the training on that. I've sold a lot of that. I've done a lot of that. And yet again, we have another industry where I'd say a big portion of people that peddle it don't have a clue how it works. Their job is to peddle it and sell it, but I like to know how things work. So I spent a lot of time figuring that out. So today, I'm going to try not to make today dry. One of the best ways to start out, I think, to generate questions is just to look at terms and really mention what those are. What I really want a big portion of the insurance section to be, and I'm saying one module, I might end up with more, but I really want people to be aware of the details around life insurance products and what those are. But I also want people to be familiar with how medical insurance is broken down. A lot of people work for an employer where they get a handbook that says, do you want plan A, B, C, or D? I don't know. What plan do I want? So again, it wasn't, correct me up, my boss actually told me I shouldn't be doing this, but I spent a lot of time at the bank bringing in my employees and running hypothetical scenarios through the plans, and would say, you should do, you can't do that, that's liability. What if they give me a break? I mean, I don't want them to have plan A and they have a major medical expense and, they need a plan B. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So again, a lot of that can be determined if you know how to run a hypothetical scenario. You know how to just look at it and see which one's designed for me. Because most of those employee handbooks don't bother telling you. They don't bother saying, you might need A if this is your situation. You might need C if this is your situation. So, you can look up the origination of insurance. There's a lot of different thoughts out there. Some of them are probably myths and whatever. Well, the one I like the most, whether it's true or not, is the Chinese farmers that were taking their crop to market and had to go by boat. And I was presented with this back when I did insurance. But the idea is they would have to take their goods by boat. And if one farmer's boat sunk, and you're talking about like canoe-sized boats, if his boat sunk, he lost everything. So the idea that was proposed is how about we take all of our product and divide it over all the boats? Now, if one boat sinks, one person doesn't lose everything, but we all lose a little bit. That's exactly what insurance is. Insurance is you are essentially signing into a pool where you are spreading your risk over everybody. Okay? If your house burns down, you're not out a house anymore, but everybody is out a portion of their premium that they have to pay to rebuild your house, if that makes sense. Okay? That's the idea of insurance. It was actually popularized in the U.S. by Benjamin Franklin. I don't know if people know that. Benjamin Franklin obviously had a lot of contributions. But he founded the first company offering a form of insurance in the United States, and it was specifically to mitigate the financial loss against fire. Okay, the area that he was in, I actually learned this as an adult. Those Bible videos that we got for the kids, I don't know if I said this, but that same company produces American Hero videos. And we bought a bunch of those last time we were at the homeschool convention. And we watched the one on Benjamin Franklin, and I didn't know Benjamin Franklin invented the lightning rod. You get that? But he invented that because whatever town he spent a portion of his life in was extremely prone to lightning strikes and fires. And so he invented that lightning rod, but he was also involved with, the fire department and all that kind of stuff, dealing with fire. So it made sense to me when I saw that he created a company that gave a form of insurance to mitigate against fire. Well, when they did that, customers had to abide by strict requirements for house structure and chimneys. And that made sense because they were in the business of mitigating risk. So, for you guys who have ever applied for life insurance and had to have a medical exam, or if you apply for health insurance and they ask you this questionnaire about your pre-existing conditions, or if you've had home insurance, I hope this has never happened to someone, but your insurance company can come out and look at your home and say, hey, fix your roof or we're canceling you. That can happen. It can happen on the business side too. I've run into that. They can come out and say, hey, you need to fix it. Well, it's because they're performing the service of mitigating risk, but they have to do that within certain parameters in order to be profitable and function as a business. So same thing happened in the very beginning. He said, hey, let's all share the risk of fire, but if you're going to be part of this group, you're going to have your chimneys cleaned on a semi-annual basis. Your house is going to be built this way. You had to fulfill certain requirements.
Well, that's fair to other people.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be fair to the
You
group.
can't have all the risk.
Yeah.
And pay all,
Wouldn't be fair to the group, depending on what type of health insurance you have. If you have, private health insurance, not through an employer, and if you have certain health issues, you're going to pay way more than the healthy person. Smokers are going to pay more for life insurance than non-smokers. Alcohol use, all that stuff. Skydivers are going to pay way more for life insurance than non-skydivers. Actually, that's probably an exclusive activity. There are, life insurance companies have lists of exclusions. If you participate in this activity, you don't get to have it. So yeah, all of that is calculated in order to make sure everyone is equally and appropriately mitigated, and then that risk spreads out as the idea of insurance.
Happened for a while when the trampolines came out. Insurance companies would.
Absolutely not. It was funny when I was in insurance. You drive down the road, if you saw a trampoline, you could know with 100% certainty that their insurance company doesn't know that there, or they would cancel it.
Certain breeds of dogs.
Yes.
Yep. Well, now I assume they've gotten around the whole trampoline thing with the massive barriers around. So, but no, yeah, there are certain things that, if you have a swimming pool, your rate goes up. Person that's falling in your swimming pool and die.
Our rate
there's
went up
things involved
because we're just in the Wayne County.
Distance from a fire station or
This
fire
is our
hydrant.
fire station, and they're all volunteer fire stations. The night of our Woodstock fire,
Your Woodstock.
they were there in like 12 minutes,
Right.
but still, there's.
Oh yeah, that can have an impact. Well, when we built our house, our rate was going to be a certain rate because we're in the jurisdiction of the Glenwood Fire Department.
Yeah.
But then I was very quick to point out, I said, which just didn't matter. Normally, fire department's one thing, fire hydrant's another thing. And I made sure my insurance company knew I have a fire hydrant in my front yard. That's a big deal because the fire hydrant's half a mile down the road.
But what's crazy is the Elk Mill mobile home park. It's covered by Elk Mill.
Yep. And that affects, people don't think of that, but that can affect your.
They set in blocks of fire station.
Yeah.
In Bentonville, it's called.
And insurance companies know that too. Insurance companies will have charts and stuff. They will know who will respond, and it can affect your rates. Insurance is this is the actual description if you look it up. It's financial products sold by insurance companies to safeguard you and or your property against the risk of loss, damage, or theft, such as flooding, burglary, and accident. It is something you pay into to protect against catastrophic financial loss. Okay? An insurance company agrees to make whole in case of a loss in exchange for premium payments from the policyholder. Okay, so the make whole concept really comes into property and casualty for the most part, but it really goes largely across. I mean, even in life insurance, you can't just go out and get $50 million of life insurance. You can't do that. The insurance company is actually going to loosely make you prove why you should have $50 million of insurance. Because again, the idea is to make whole. In my situation, I mean, I've got a couple different policies before, and my agent has actually asked, we need an idea of assets and property and all that stuff, because the insurance company does not want to write more. They don't, because they're mitigating their risk too. You know, they don't want to write 50 million on someone that maybe there's something there we're not sure about, or maybe there's something and there's no legitimate reason for that person to have it. Well, property and casualty is kind of the same way. I mean, their plan is to make whole. If your house burns down, they provide you coverage to build your house. That's the idea. If your thing, you know, just gets stolen, their goal is to give that to you. So it's and that can get pretty unique in certain circumstances. I know when I worked for Wilson Lawson Myers, we had a guy that, for kicks and giggles, or for a hobby, he liked, I think, kind of refinishing old cars and stuff. He got a hold of a race car body, a 100-year-old race car body. Ended up finding out like a year later that it set some land speed record 100 years ago or so. So the insurance, I mean, they had to have multiple high-level, expensive appraisals and everything in order to determine a value that the insurance company was willing to insure, to try to determine value. There are things in life that sometimes it's hard to determine what the value is. Sometimes it's good to look at the insurance. For instance, I think, the Mona Lisa has been insured for $100 million before while being transported. Well, can't really say that's what it's worth. I mean, it's a irreplaceable painting. I mean, it's a work of whatever. But I mean, that gives you an idea of the level of value there. And insurance companies try to determine that, what appropriate value is. Many things can be insured: real estate, vehicles, antiques, health, body parts. Did I mention that Thursday or Sunday? Income, employee loss. If I have an important employee in my business, I can insure that individual dying. If that person dies, I get money to insure their replacement. Rain, you can insure against rain. Flood, guns, jewelry, ability to bathe, long-term care insurance. Okay. All long-term care insurance says is when I start to lose the functions of what are called activities of daily living. There are 6. Can't remember fully what they are. They include bathing, eating, dressing. When I start to lose that, there is an insurance policy to pay for care, to take care of that, and death. Okay. If it was Thursday, I'm trying to think who all was here and wasn't here Thursday. But we talked about, that through the ages, celebrities have often insured body parts. Betty Grable's legs were insured for $1 million. I mentioned Thursday that when Mariah Carey was the official celebrity for Gillette's Legs of a Goddess campaign, that Gillette insured her legs for $1 billion. And they did that because, keep in mind, in all those situations, they're insuring against loss of revenue, or they're insuring against an expense. For a professional singer to insure their voice, for a professional, I think I mentioned professional juggler to insure his hands. The Irish jig guy, the Michael Flatley guy, his feet are insured for like $500,000 or something. But again, all of that's their livelihood. They're insuring against the loss of the ability to do that. But it kind of ends up for some funny situations. And there's pretty wacky stuff. I mean, if you want to insure against the zombie apocalypse, you can get insurance for that. Alien abduction, all that stuff's out there.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean,
It's pretty safe bet for insurance.
yeah.
We buy crop insurance.
Yeah,
Oh, sure.
exactly, yeah. Yep.
Well, you know, and our lenders pretty much insist on
Yeah.
it. Yeah, so against legal and
Yep, all that stuff, yeah.
beetles and.
Has anyone here watched the Big Short? Okay. Do you realize the irony of that movie was those guys were buying insurance policies if the market tanked? Okay. That's why they were considered, that movie really follows the geniuses that figured out the problem before everybody else. Steve Carell's character, Christian Bale's character, those guys figured out the problem and they insured, pretty much betting that the American economy would collapse, in which it did. They would get money, okay? And that's why some of the banks laughed them out of the room and are like, of course we'll give you insurance because the housing market has never collapsed. Well, I mean, you're a moron, but well then, when it collapsed, when you heard about all the problems with AIG, it's because AIG had these insurance policies they couldn't afford to pay out. They couldn't afford to pay out that money in certain circumstances, which is why at the end of the movie, Christian Bale's character and Steve, all those guys are freaking out like, wait a second, you're manipulating this. It's tanking. You owe us our money for the product we bought. So in that case, it was even insurance hedging against a specific economic situation. In that case, it was actually investment strategy. So, but all kinds of stuff can be insured. Antiques, guns, jewelry, all that stuff can be specifically on your homeowner's insurance policy. You can actually have what's called a schedule. And you can schedule, if you want your engagement ring with its own tiny little policy, with its own deductible and everything, you can do that. Okay? You can insure that. A lot of people don't do that, but we had customers that did it.
Matt, you can also get writers on policies, right? Because if you.
Right. Well, and that's a lot of times those, and I'll talk about that. A lot of times those writers kind of like give you an extra bundle, of coverage. And most people go that route before they schedule very specific. But I remember having a customer, that they had 150 items of stuff scheduled, all with their own tiny little miniature policy. But it was articles of jewelry and things like that. So, and that stuff was relatively cheap. I mean, you could schedule a $15,000 ring for like $3 a month, and have a $50 deductible instead of a $1,000 deductible. So again, I thought terms would kind of be the best way to go at this here. First of all, these terms really apply to about every form of insurance I can think of. Okay, they're kind of universal. A claim is a policy holder's request for reimbursement due to a covered loss. So whatever type of insurance you have, when an event happens that is actually covered, the claim is the policy holder saying, hey, this happened. I'd like to get made whole. Okay, I'd like to be fixed. Premium is an amount paid by the policy holder to insurance company in exchange for the coverage. That's ultimately what you pay for the service. But again, at the same time, kind of see it as that's everybody chipping in order to create a pool that helps the people. You may pay auto insurance for 60 years of your life and never use it. Well, that's what you're signing on for. What you bought was not an investment that you'll get a return on. You were buying a reduction of risk. Is what you A deductible. A deductible is the amount the policyholder must pay first before a policy pays out. This applies most specifically to homeowners insurance, to auto insurance, okay? And sometimes you can have different deductibles for a policy, okay? On auto insurance, you have different types of coverage. For example, you have a collision coverage, which I'll talk about. You have a comprehensive coverage. Those may have their own deductibles. So if you hit a deer, you may have to pay $100 before the policy pays out. But if you smash into a telephone pole, you may have to pay $500 before your policy pays out. Okay? For instance, with our church congregation, when the basement flooded, we had to pay the first $1,000 to fix stuff, and then the insurance company paid after that. So that deductible is kind of a way for insurance companies to avoid minor, super minor claims. It's also a way for the policyholder to reduce that monthly expense. You can increase the premium, increase the deductible and lower the amount that you pay on a monthly basis. A rider is an agreement to expand or limit coverage on a policy. Okay, so a good example of a rider is I'm trying to think of one. When I did life insurance, a popular rider was an inflation rider. Okay, you talk to people who have had life insurance policies from 50 years ago, and it's a whopping $500. Well, funerals now cost $10,000. So you could do an inflation rider for an extra $1 a month. Your death benefit would actually move proportionally with inflation costs, something like that. Another extremely popular rider, which I would assume everyone here has because most agents don't even give you the option. A standard form homeowner's insurance policy insures your home for what is called replacement. That means if your home burns down, they build you a new house. Okay. Then it insures all the stuff in your house at 50% of the home's value at what is called actual cash value coverage. Here's what that means. Okay. Actual cash value coverage is if you have a 20-year-old TV, they only give you the money to buy a 20-year-old TV. If you have a 10-year-old couch, they only give you the money to buy a 10-year-old couch. An extremely popular rider that almost every single agent does is they give you replacement costs on your personal property. So almost anyone here, if your house burns down and all your stuff inside, they give you money to build a new house, and they give you money at today's prices to buy new stuff. Does that make sense? Because if you start to take all the stuff in your house and determine what today's market value is, and you come to our storage auction and you can see what stuff's worth. I mean, it's junk.
That's what happened with our barn. We didn't have a replacement.
Yeah. Yeah. So normally on a house, most agents will, they stick on that replacement cost. And sometimes that rider even kicks the value up to 80% of the house as opposed to 50. So if you ever heard, before I got into insurance, I'd always watch these movies and hear about insurance fraud, like someone burning down their own house. And I'm like, how do they make any money? Because the insurance company just gives them the money to rebuild the house. I think a big way that you can do, you have someone with $1 million house that automatically gets $800,000 of contents coverage, and they burn down their house. You're getting $1 million to rebuild the house. You're getting just a check for $800,000 to buy new stuff. Well, I don't care how nice your house is. It's not. You don't have $800,000 stuff. But insurance companies, as I'll talk about, they sometimes promote these riders that kind of moves out of the realm of making whole. But they do that because it's profitable for them. I run into that situation in my business. I mean, I have buildings that I have bought for $100,000 insured at $2.5 million because they say that's what it would take to rebuild it. And it's like, well, that's questionable, first of all. Second of all, if I have the option to insure it for $100,000, I do that. Because if it burns down, I'm done with it. I'm not going to rebuild this whole building, but they won't allow me to do that. Well, they won't allow me to do that because they know statistically it's unlikely, and they want the extra premium. So, and there are times like because of the way things are insured, you can almost win a jackpot if you have an insurance claim as opposed to being made whole. I was talking to Ryan Lynch the other day. Ryan, I don't think he might be telling this, but Ryan bought the Sparkle Car Wash. He owns a car wash over here on Park Road. And he said he got the call one day that someone ran into the car wash.
Oh, I remember that. Smashed
into it. And his first thought was, oh my gosh, I just put that car wash in. And he said, wait, which building? Oh, the old building. He's like, yes, because it was just some dumb, empty building. Yeah. and you get the insurance claim because that's the agreement, someone smashed into the building.
Still don't know how that guy did that.
But so insurance, I won't go too deep into that, but the purpose of insurance is to make whole. But there are definitely situations sometimes that the insurance companies create themselves where you can profit from insurance, which shouldn't happen because that motivates fraud. It shouldn't work like that. So,
This may be a little different, but they used to cut wood in the woods just around the corner from me. And the guy that owned it, you play with the two. I'll do this. And this guy that owned it, he always requested a copy of my homeowner's insurance.
Okay.
Because I guess, does that cover me if I go in there and do something stupid and do damage?
yeah, your liability can extend beyond your home.
That's-
Yeah. Homeowners, and again, we'll talk about that, but homeowners insurance, what a lot of people don't think of often is that comes with a hefty dose of liability to where, yes, it can be something happening on your property, but it can also follow you in certain circumstances. It's common practice with commercial leases. All my commercial tenants have to give me $1 million liability policy, and they want to know mine too. And the idea is you're trying to make sure if we do something stupid, we're paying for it. If you do something stupid, you're paying for it.
In another place, we often tell people that rent a storage unit. If you own a home or you have renter's insurance, most likely your storage unit is covered.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of times homeowner insurance
But
will extend.
most people don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, I deal with that with my tenants sometimes where I think 90% of my residential tenants think if the building burnt down, my insurance would take care of it. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. My insurance would take care of my building, and it would take care of the rent that you won't pay me because you won't live here. But your stuff is your stuff. You have to insure your stuff. Furthermore, if you do something dumb in your apartment, renter's insurance comes with a dose of liability too. If someone is, I don't know, you have them over for dinner and they burn their hand on your stove or something. All that's wrapped up together there most of the time.
You'd have a hateful come in and.
Oh, yeah.
Pay,
Oh, yeah.
not have liability.
Yep.
And it's gotten where, the last few years, when I was cut wood, it was hard to get somebody to let you come on their land.
Yep.
Because of doing damage, rutting up the land, or tearing up crops, or dropping trees.
Leaving trash.
Well, I deal with that. I deal with that with contractors. I always kind of felt bad for people like my dad, because if contractors are doing it the right way and paying all the expenses you have to pay, it costs more to do business than Joe Schmo handyman who could come in. And that's the risk you run sometimes. You have Joe Schmo handyman come in. If he causes damage, if there's no insurance covering him, you could sue him.
A
But
friend of mine was going to work in Richmond where he lays carpet. The guy was taking down a tree for a homeowner, dropped it on my friend's van as he went by.
Yep.
And guess what? This guy taking down the tree was just me.
right.
Just Joe Schmo, had no bonding, no nothing.
No, nothing.
And
And then it becomes
so
a huge,
now it goes back to the homeowner.
huge
Where it
mess.
goes.
Well, it can. That's
Yeah.
where you get people trying to sue. That's why, again, if I was in Indianapolis, my policies would be slightly different. But that's why larger, more pristine rental apartment complexes require you to have renter's insurance. Because again, they want that separation. I deal with that. I was actually just talking to my guy over at Little Caesars the other day that the 2 years prior to me buying that, there were 3 lawsuits. Well, there's nothing stopping they could sue Little Caesars and sue Family Dollar and sue me and just sue everyone. There's nothing stopping that. And sometimes that's motivated because, person A may not have the coverage. So you got to go after person B and see if you can get made whole somehow, But yeah, the idea is liability is a big portion of that that people don't think of. I think most people think insurance protects my stuff. Liability is a huge part of insurance. That's
One of the big policies being sold now is coverage for if I use my handgun in self-defense. It's
Yeah, yeah,
coverage for me.
against the walls, yeah, liability.
You know?
That's. It's obviously other problems, with that aspect. But again, it's the same type of idea. Malpractice insurance is just a form of liability. If someone sues me and claims that I messed up, instead of me taking a catastrophic financial loss, this is here to, And like I said, the underwriter is the person at the company who reviews the application and ultimately decides on policy approval and terms. So sometimes the underwriter, the agent may apply and say, this person's eligible for this benefit, that gets them a reduction in premium. The underwriter is the one who looks over everything and says, well, based on this, their credit score is 1 point higher than it needed to be, so we give a reduction, but their roof is a little older. Here's what we would offer to them. The underwriter is the one who decides. Any questions on those?
My only question is a claim. I've just haven't had it happen to me, but so many people have said when they turn in a claim, then their insurance premium goes up. Why is that? When you have fulfilled your obligation in paying your premium, when you make a claim, which is why you have the insurance, why then does your insurance go up?
Because your premium originally was based on the statistics of your life. So for example, 17-year-old Matt Parsley gets insurance and then has an at-fault accident. When I got insurance, I was a driver with 2 speeding tickets and no at-fault accidents. Okay? When that happened, I'm now a driver with an at-fault accident. Ultimately, there's nothing stopping them from saying, well, based on what you are now, your premium goes higher. Homeowners insurance gets a little frustrating because some of that's out of your control, but I've heard of companies, if you have a fire claim, if your home burns down, most times they'll pay for it and say, see you. They're like, we don't want you anymore. And there's not necessarily any logical or provable rhyme or reason to that, other than, even if it's bad juju, they don't want you. It's like you have had a massive fire claim. And sometimes it's even hard for you to find home insurance. You go to another company and say, yeah, I just had a $100,000 fire claim. It's kind of weird in that regard. And I don't know of any government protected, protections with that. But yeah, it's weird that they're allowed to do that. They reserve the right to it. One thing I learned in insurance, it's kind of interesting. It's one of the only industries that is legally allowed to discriminate. They can discriminate all day long. If your health isn't what they want, if your age isn't what they want, they can discriminate and say, nope, we're not doing it. So they maintain that right that we can adjust. But no, the claim essentially, they assumed when they gave you the original premium that this was the statistical chance that we would pay out. And then when they pay out, okay, now that has changed. So for you to still properly fit in this group, we have to raise your premium. But a lot of people, I've heard people say that before, that they're frustrated. And I don't know, it always made sense to me. It's like, well, if you used it and now you're a higher risk to them, you're going to pay more if you're a higher risk.
And I've had a couple, I'll not mention names because they're local, but through my work for the state police now, I've had a few employees of insurance companies flat out telling me that they've been directed to get people to buy insurance to pay into it, knowing that there's a loophole. As soon as they file a claim, they will be dropped no matter what, because the company doesn't want them for insurance, they want them for money. And they'll just flat out tell you, we don't care about paying you, we want your money. And if we can, because I didn't know I started talking to them either, all these insurance companies have people that they pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to find loopholes to not pay out,
right,
only because they know that, and as soon as they find that loophole, then they'll drop them.
Obviously it's a business,
Yeah.
As I'll get to here in a while, there are adjusters. They hire people to really assess. And what was funny is in my life experience, I had always run into the opposite. Like when I worked at Wilson Lawson Myers, every company we had was so easygoing. A lot of them were mutual companies though. They weren't publicly held companies with stockholders. So, but the adjusters were often like, oh, Betty, you know, that she got an estimate at Dave's Collision for 2,000, fix the car, I'll cut a check. Never, and he never called Betty, he trusted the agent. But I ran into a couple years ago where I had a contractor tell me I had hail damage on some roofs. And man, my company fought me for 4 or 5 months. It's like, nope, there's no damage. I mean, it got to the point where my company was like, okay, we'll hire an unbiased roofing engineer to come in and see. And I'm like, you'll hire an unbiased roofing engineer? And to big surprise, roofing engineer came in and said, no hail has dropped in Fayette County in 20 years. Bring this place up. And I was like, okay. Well, I mean, so it's a business. I mean, they're there to, I mean, they want to fulfill their obligation, but they want to make money too. So that's why within the realm of insurance, fraud on either side can be
I say we're getting more calls from victims trying to go back to the insurance companies, and we went to criminal court over a couple of them.
Yeah.
It's surprising. And as soon as they get that subpoena, all of a sudden they want to pay out.
Well, there's a lot of attorneys that make a lot of money.
Yeah.
You guys turn on the TV for 5 minutes in the middle of the day. Have you been in a car accident? Call Ken Dunn. We've paid $500. And I saw that. Was you talking about the hammer? I saw his.
Oh, I saw that.
But you gotta be kidding me. But I mean, that's how they make their money. And those people exist, unfortunately, because at some point companies have not fulfilled their obligations, and they also exist because of the people. Yes.
My dad used to own an insurance agency in Kentucky, and we had one summer, we had a very bad hailstorm, and the companies refused to let my dad write him.
Yeah.
So he was out of commissions.
Yeah.
But he had nothing to do with it, but their claims were so high
All right.
that they said.
That's the thing that's spooky with insurance. Like I never, you think about Hurricane Katrina with Louisiana. I mean, you talk about a risky business. I don't care how big an insurance company you are. I mean, if you are just clobbered, and that's why they're always trying to mitigate that. Always trying to, I think the government requires them to maintain a certain level of reserves or build up to those reserves. But I mean, they are in the business of dealing with a lot of times natural things. And if some unprecedented natural thing happens, that's a lot of times that's what's linked to the state of emergency, issued by the government, because insurance companies can't afford to do it. I mean, we wrote for Indiana farmers, in Wilson Lewis Miners. Indiana Farmers is a company that writes just in Indiana. Well, you figure, I don't know. I mean, what if we had an ice storm with 5 inches of ice coming in? I mean, it could happen. It may happen once every few hundred years, but if that came in and hit the Midwest, I mean, I don't know how they've done it. I mean, I don't, but they try to, that's why insurance involves a lot of statistical analysis, a lot of trying to determine what we can handle. But yeah, there have been situations where a tornado will come through a town, and it's a big deal.
Dents in everybody's cars.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was pretty widespread, not just in a little spot.
Yeah.
And it tore up roofs, it damaged crops,
Oh yeah.
and who, I mean, so
Right.
the insurance company, that's when my dad lost his agency because of that.
It's an interesting industry. I mean, it's
He didn't believe it.
because there's no way to foretell the future. I mean, there's no way to know that. I mean, the best you can do is try to charge the appropriate amount of premium to be ready for something like that. So, like I said in the movie The Big Short. I mean, those companies just thought statistically there's no way this will ever pay out, so they literally got haphazard in writing coverage they couldn't handle, and they were affected.
Dad was doing it to this.
Yeah.
He had to pay out too much money.
Yep. These terms apply primarily to property and casualty insurance. We'll finish up here in a couple minutes. A covered peril. That's one thing you learn when you go to take the class for insurance. A standard insurance form actually has like 15 covered perils. Okay. And a covered peril is a specific risk covered under a policy such as theft, fire, wind, flood, etc. There's actually, and I can't remember if this is a covered peril or not, but there are certain events called acts of God. I find that interesting. War, I don't know if you know this, but if we ever became war ground, your insurance policy does not cover it. I mean, if your house is nuked, it's not covered. I mean, acts of war are not covered. You know, there are certain things that aren't covered. Most of the natural things that can happen, fire, lightning, all that stuff is covered. Comprehensive coverage. This applies pretty much exclusively to auto insurance. And this is something that, again, I think so many people have, but they don't understand how it works. Comprehensive coverage is for losses other than in an accident. I always used to tell people it's the stuff you have pretty much no control over. If hail dents your car, if someone busts in your window and steals your purse, if you hit a deer, if a rock flies up and cracks your windshield, that's comprehensive coverage. And most of the time, that is the cheaper portion of your coverage. So you can get a lower deductible and it not affect your premium as much. A lot of times people would end up getting a $100 comprehensive deductible, but a $500 collision deductible. Sometimes you get a zero, it's kind of nice to have a $0 comprehensive deductible, because when that stinking rock flies up from the truck and cracks your $800 windshield, I mean, that happened to I had my truck for 3 weeks and went up to Lafayette to see my friend and came out the next morning. It kind of got cold that night and I cracked that long. A rock had actually come up, barely nicked right behind the mirror. And then the cold and the expansion and contraction. And I mean, I took it down and never had to pay a dime because $0.
We had a thunderstorm, blew a limb in the back window of our van, right through it.
Yeah.
Like a spear.
Yeah.
It's glass everywhere.
All that kind of stuff is comprehensive. Okay, there's that. Collision. Sorry, yes.
I would say a big one right now, because I do chew work on the side. Renters, for example, is the biggest one we're getting. They go rent a property. One of the things that they're doing is they're having us come out and take a look at their trees. If they are alive or dying, because as soon as it gets flagged that it's dying, act of God does not cover that, because it becomes negligence after that. It becomes, the owner's job to cut that down, because say, a storm happens after they've already been made aware of, a tree falls, hits a car or a person, then it's no longer considered an act of God. It's considered criminal negligence.
Yeah.
So that's a big one right now.
Well,
a lot of calls are going for that.
And you make a big point that one key thing with insurance, and this was stressed to me all the time, you as a homeowner, when the damage starts, you are under obligation to prevent further damage at all costs. Because if you do so, the second it moves into negligence of the homeowner, coverage can get pretty skippy, For example, when our congregation, we walked in and heard the waterfall in the basement. I mean, if we just would have went home and called a few days later and said, we had Bible study the other night, realized the basement was flooding. It's probably up to 6 feet now, and I think there's mold. I mean, you're not allowed to do that. We were under obligation to, if we could get rid of the water, we called Hartzell's right away. I mean, you've got to do that stuff. If you have a leak in your roof, you can't just let it keep leaking and damaging the property. You cannot do that. You are under obligation within a reasonable time frame to deal with that problem. But negligence is another. That's where it can get kind of gray and sketchy.
It's the same thing with car wrecks. Say you're driving at night and you hit a deer. Okay, yes, we understand you driving home because one, it's dark, depending on where you're at. But we get a lot of people that call 2 and 3 days later. Oh, hey, I hit a deer a couple days ago. I need a report. Nope, sorry.
Yep.
Ain't gonna happen.
Well, see, I dealt with that in insurance. People would say, I hit a deer. Did you call the police office? I mean, some people don't think to do it.
Right.
Well, I didn't think to call the police officer. Well, how do we know you hit a deer?
Right.
Well,
When did you hit the deer? I mean,
last time I hit a deer, Wayne County said, well, are you sure you need a report? And I said, well, imagine my insurance.
Yeah.
Well, why
It's
don't you
always
check with your
safest.
insurance and see if they need a report?
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
And
I
they came out a
remember.
couple days later.
I remember deer claims where it's going to be different from company. It's always been, if you are in a situation of loss and you have a situation where a police officer can document it, it's
The biggest thing for us is in that situation, since you called, we can backdate it to when you called.
You called, yeah.
But if you wait to call,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I've done that before. They'll call in and I'll get all the information. I'm like, hey, the majority of all, State Farm, Allstate, Farm Bureau, AAA, I'm trying to think, all these major ones, they flat out told us if it's a car deer, we don't care if it's totaled the car. We will not pull a report. They just flat out told us that. So we started getting to the point where say, hey, we'll take your information, contact your company. If you need one, you're covered. You called us, we got it. But
Well, and that's the thing is I assume even with, the company just has to be able to reasonably determine you actually hit a deer and didn't sideswipe a telephone
Right.
because those are different coverages.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of times, collision and comprehensive coverages are required by a bank. You have a loan on a car. When that loan goes away, you can do whatever you want with those coverages. All you're required by the government to have is liability. A lot of people nix the collision coverage but keep the comprehensive because it's so cheap. So if a person's in that situation, they have to be able to determine that you actually hit a deer. You actually did. And weird stuff can happen. I mean, a deer ran into the side of Robin's car, a few months ago. It doesn't really look like a deer accident. So she needs something. So I don't, in my opinion, as long as something is there, even if you have a police officer saying, I'm Officer Bob, I'm going to remember this. If you run into problems, let me know. Even that would be good enough. But
In this day, they shoot a video of the deer laying there.
Yeah.
Steam coming out of
even that, yeah. Well, even that would be that would help. Yeah.
Say, look,
It's not like insurance companies. That's what I mean. Is it, in my experience, they're not going to stay in business very long if they're trying to cheat.
Yeah.
They're wanting to fulfill their obligations. So.
Do you remember when you were at my house for Ron's funeral and we had a hailstorm? And all of these people from 3 other states were running out before the hail melted to get pictures of it on their phone because they were all going home somewhere else and had proof that they were in a hailstorm.
Yeah. That's a good idea. The adjuster, most of the time, property and casualty really is where an adjuster is involved. It's actually an individual hired by the company to assess the loss. So the policyholder says, I need to make a claim. Okay, what is the claim for? Well, my roof blew off in the wind. A lot of times an adjuster will say, okay, get a couple estimates, and I'm going to come out, take pictures, try to assess if you're bogus or not, if this actually happened, in most situations, the adjuster is kind of the one controlling the checkbook that's going out. But like I said, I had an adjuster in my company that he fought me to. It didn't matter that I had contractors saying it needed done. He said, no, it doesn't. That's not accurate.
Well, they just switched with the last 6 months. It's now 75% has to be damaged, not 50%. So before, it was almost half of it was damaged. They replaced the whole thing, and they won't do it anymore. They will just put bits and pieces unless 75% or more is covered.
Right. Well, that's the thing. That's what I mean. Is some insurance companies are pretty easy going with that. There have been times where, you could say, hey, I had wind damage. I've got a few shingles blowing off, and the insurance company will write you a check for the roof. But they're not necessarily under obligation to do that. It depends on the company. Last thing, personal property. A lot of people don't understand that. You look at your homeowner's policy, and you have dwelling. That is your structure. Personal property is best defined as if you took your house and dumped it upside down and shook it, everything would fall out. That's what I always explain to people, okay? Your cabinets are not personal property. Your fireplace is not personal property, It's all the stuff that would fall out. That's what that coverage is. And again, that's what spooks me with tenants sometimes, is as a landlord, I don't have personal property coverage on my rental properties because I have no stuff, I may have a little bit for like my fridges and my stoves, but I don't have it to cover everyone's stuff. That's why a renter's policy doesn't have dwelling. It's just the stuff. It's just, a lot of times the renter's policy is for like 10 grand of stuff, It's outrageously cheap. A renter's policy is like $50, $60 a year, I think. It's well worth it. But that's the difference between the two. Personal property is the stuff. And I won't go into detail because I've been out of the insurance loop for a while, but I do remember a lot of times if you have your stuff off-site in a rented location or something like a storage unit, sometimes you might need a rider, but I think a standard policy oftentimes will extend to that. So if a storage facility burnt down, and I would always advise people, ask your agent to clarify. Because again, people don't think of that. They don't think of that at all, you know? And, but there is, you know, it's a good question to ask. You're storing your valuables, you know, off-site somewhere. That company is not going to cover that stuff. I mean, the company's not going to cover your stuff. There's no way to do that. There's no way to know the value.
Two people at North Town, they make a buy insurance policy.
And see, that's,
But that insurance policy, they're charging like $350 a month for it.
right.
Can you imagine how cheap you could put that rider on your policy for?
Or it may be, like I said, it may be automatically included
Or
with
might
many
already
companies.
include,
Yeah. And that's smart from a business standpoint of that company
yeah.
in a way, because I mean, they've got metal buildings on concrete slabs. I mean, nothing's ever going to burn down. The only thing that could possibly happen is a tornado pick everything up and spread it across the cornfield, you know. But that's kind of a smart little product to do, build in. But yeah, most of the time, I think their standard policy would extend it.
They also charge administration fees.
All kinds of. Guys, we'll continue on. It'll be the first Lord's Day in March. Okay. Next week, we just have our morning assembly. Russ has our message, and then the first week, the congregation will provide the meal, and then we'll kind of have a normal spiel. So, any questions about anything? All right, let me close. Yeah.
I mean, later on, you'll kind of go over what might be the best looking
For health insurance, or what do you
or
mean?
just like homeowners.
I'm actually going to go over what's called the deck page. The coverages actually are very simple. And I think I'm going to hit a lot of that. I'm not done with terms yet. I mean, most homeowners coverage, auto coverage is really pretty simple as long as you understand what it means. Like if you look at homeowners coverage, you have dwelling, personal property, medical payments, liability, you know, and most people are like, okay, well, I don't know all that means, a bunch of numbers, but I'm going to go over those details.
Because
of what
it's
that
just like, with, you know, I knew that we had like homeowners, like a farm policy.
Right.
So I knew that as far as the building, I wasn't quite so sure that this thing that we've had itemized, I still, you know, you don't think that way. If something burns, then everything.
Right.
But it's covered only for what the
Oh,
amount
yeah.
that you had itemized. And which James was very fortunate, because that day he stopped and put his tractor and baler in our barn because it started raining. And luckily they went ahead and covered that, and he had a replacement. So
Right.
So something, and he kept saying, "Are you sure?" Because he thought that it was going to be like, if they paid $9,000, he was going to be thrilled. But it ended up being, he got a $56,000 tractor.
Right.
We were thrilled for him because we felt horrible that his tractor burned in my barn.
Yeah.
But of course, we don't have a tractor. But
no, you're right. And see,
so
a
for me to know the term more.
right. And we'll go over all that. Now, a homeowner's policy is a very standard kind of packaged form of coverage. That when you start to get into the realm of like farm, you get into the realm of more specialty stuff, a lot of it is very itemized. It's very tailored. And that's what's kind of frustrating at times. Sometimes agents don't take the time to tailor it with their customers. And so, yeah, we'll talk about a lot what those coverages mean. But when it comes to actually doing the policy, an agent should be willing to sit down and meet, and you say, okay, what if this happens? What if this happens? What about this? You know, and I deal with that on the business side of, I try to remember, okay, which properties do I have replacement of rent? You know, because my tenants don't have a place to live, they're going to pay me, you know. What properties do I have glass breakage? You know, I have a special coverage if someone comes up, throws a rock through a $1,000 window, you know, stuff like that.
So we were very fortunate because of
Ellie, sit.
my agent of course, knew us inside and out. It did not have any trouble, and he was more so when I was saying, no, wait a minute, that wasn't in the barn. And he just finally started coming talking to Benji so that I wouldn't be, because he says, I'm gonna give you as much as I possibly can.
One nice thing about the design of insurance is most of the time, the agent, especially that's one benefit of independent agent, and I'll talk about this later. An independent agent is like Wilson Elson Myers, RMD Patty. They are their own entity that sell products for multiple companies. So most of the time, they are very customer focused. They are the advocate for the customer. I'm not saying that like Cindy Birdseye isn't. Most times Cindy will be, but Cindy is ultimately employed by State Farm Insurance, and those are the products she sells. So, but no, most agents, I've never run into an agent that's just
My
like,
cousin was
the
thinking,
company is not gonna, you know, I mean, most agents are focused on their customers because they're the ones that want to keep happy because they get commission off that customer. I mean, they're not getting technically a paycheck from the company. They're getting a portion of commission from their customers. So it's good in that sense. I mean, most agents are very, you know, State Farm pushes that really big in their commercials, but almost every agent of every company is going to be extremely customer focused. I mean, they're motivated to do that. So, good questions. But yeah, we'll go over all that stuff. All right, let's pray and then we'll be dismissed. Lord God of heaven, we thank you so much for another day. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to come together. Lord, I pray that this information is helpful not only to us personally as we deal with these things in life, but Lord, knowing that everyone around us might also run into complications or questions or hard times where they're dealing with these sorts of things. I just pray that we can be a resource, Lord, and this be maybe a portion of fulfilling a physical need so that a spiritual opportunity arises. Pray that you be with this week. Lord, just pray, Lord, that we can be lights for you, that we can really show people the great blessings that it is to be a Christian and to follow you and to have the hope that we have in Christ Jesus. I just think in his name. Amen.
Yes.
Did you know that Julie Lawrence,
Right.
works at our jail now?
Why do you know that?
She's
No, I haven't.
working for,
might just
anyway, she takes care of the cells with women, I guess.
Really?
Well, and too, because she had to force a man up who
Right.
was trying to strip himself down off the floor, you know. So
Oh.
Thanks, Matthew, sorry to keep you.
No, that's fine. I just,
She just got
I
some
didn't
other
wanna
questions,
keep
just like
you guys-
with,
You have to carry a taser, you have to be tased.
you know, should you ask for a higher deductible, well, that helps.
That
us.
made me
If you
think
know
about
that
what
you
you
have
said
that
about, you know,
deductible, does
prefer
that
not to
bring
use
down, you know,
and that's
just-
where, to
just
me,
some
there's a
things
lot
like
of the
that.
strategic stuff
Yes.
comes in. You know,
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
me,
like,
one of the reasons I
in my
prefer not
case
to
on-
is because we
on
work
my
alone so
properties,
much that if we have a taser and
you know,
use it,
sometimes depends on the
there
financial
is a
interest. Like I
certain
told my
charge
agent the other
to
day,
that
I'm like,
taser
if I can
and it
get
will
lower
run
premium
dry,
for our deductible,
but
I'll do it
legally,
because I
they
can
see
kind
that
of
as
self-insurance
we-
in that
See,
way.
I need to kind of do that on
And
our
then
vehicles
if they
first, they're
start
old, and we,
acting out, we
Benji's
should
always wanted to.
do it
have full
again.
coverage with his son.
But
I
if
know
it
it's
gets to the
silly.
point where we're.
You can
I
get to
know
a
that
point,
taser
I mean,
dies,
when
we-
they reach
we
a
are
certain
that-
age,
We're way beyond
yeah,
that.
So
you're
this
paying,
is liability.
you're paying
To switch from
possibly
non-lethal
some,
tasers
I've
to
seen
lethal
situations where
gun.
people are paying more
So
in
I'm
a
like, you
year
know what?
for
I know
coverage
that I work
than
in
what
Orange County,
the
I
insurance
know that,
company would
so
give them
I
if they
go,
totaled the car, just because of values.
Yeah.
And most insurance companies don't, they almost get to the point where the cost of the coverage hits a floor and doesn't keep reducing to nothing. So the customer is overpaying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about
Yes,
that.
exactly. I see it all the time. So I loopholes that I do the action.
Hey, if you do want to
No, one, because that's how I have to write the report. It's just based off of one statute and the elements of that crime. You know, that book is so thick, I have to research all these other statutes because they have loopholes to the one statute that I'm looking at.
Is that the worst part?
Yeah, oh yeah, it is. Well, like tonight, everything that happened this morning or last night, I'm gonna be spending all day just doing reports and paperwork today. I'll have at least 8 hours of paperwork from yesterday.
Oh, my
So,
word. That takes some fun out of your job.
Yeah, it kind of does, but Sundays isn't too bad because they're usually, knock on wood, a little bit slower. But everything is just part of the job.
It's nice if you had a secretary or
Yeah.
somebody to turn a report into somebody.
Yeah.
That's all she does.
Well, we used to pay for